If you're adapting EF lenses to your EF-M mount camera, this adapter with built-in variable ND filter is an absolute no-brainer. And it doesn't matter if you're shooting photo or video, this is just a complete game changer. And in full disclosure, this adapter was sent out to me for the purpose of making this video, but all opinions are my own and I have not been paid to make this video. I must admit to having a love-hate relationship with ND filters, and I've often felt like they didn't make enough difference to really be worthwhile. And I think this whole shutter speed in video thing tends to be a little bit overrated because there's only really specific situations where that helps you. And I will go over that in a future video. All of this sort of frustration towards ND filters just centered around how difficult they were to use. And the first problem I had with them is when you put them on, often depending on what ND filter you have, it renders your current lens cap just sort of unusable. So you cannot put the lens cap on the filter the way it comes. You either have to find a bigger or different lens cap, or a lot of them just won't even take a lens cap at all. In fact, some of the most premium ones, I think it's the Hoya one, you can't even put a lens cap on that one. The other problem I've run into is the variable ND filter sort of works by turning the one piece of glass of the filter in front of the second piece of glass. But if actually the lens filter itself becomes a bit loose, you can often be turning the entire thing and you're taking the sort of the lens filter on and off. And to know when you're on the run and you're just sort of trying to get a shot, whether you're actually turning the whole filter off the camera or whether you're actually turning the ND filter in the way it's supposed to be happening, is sometimes you're just not sure what's going on. The other thing is they can be fairly expensive, and to be able to make use of sort of one good quality ND filter and use it on all your different lenses, you actually have to use step-up rings. So often I'll have all these different step-up rings, and then when I want to change lenses, then I've got to change the step-up rings down. And the whole thing is just a clumsy mess. And because of that, I just hated using them, and I just mostly convinced myself that it didn't matter. And if all that wasn't frustrating enough, as soon as I went indoors or in lower lighting conditions, I had to take the whole thing off and put it back in my bag. So for those reasons, I really virtually almost never used an ND filter until now. And this adapter, this EF-M to EF-S or EF adapter, includes a variable ND filter in the adapter itself. And this essentially solves every single problem I had. 1, the lens cap still fits. There's no problems there. 2, I'm not spinning something and not sure if it's coming on or off. This actually spins with just a little finger turn there. In addition to that, I get hard stops. So I've hard stopped at the minimum, I'm hard stopped at the maximum, and I know exactly where I am. With your normal ND filter, sometimes if there's not hard stops, you can keep going to the point where you're completely ruining your image. With this, that's not going to happen. You've got hard stops on both sides. In addition to that, I'm not working with step-up rings, because if I want to change this lens over to a different lens, take the lens off, put this lens on, now I'm shooting with this lens, and I've got the same ND filter. So this is just really made this whole variable ND filter experience from something that was a complete nightmare to something that is super, super simple. Now, in addition to that, you do still run into the situation where you might go indoors and you might not have enough light, or you might not need the ND filter. You might have to take it out. That's just as simple as that and that. Now I've got the clear filter in. There's just nothing in there. ND filter disabled. Off. On. ND filter enabled. That's how easy this is. So this has really changed the way I use my cameras and adapted lenses, and it just means that I am pretty much using an ND filter in every situation where it's appropriate. Now, when it comes to the price on this thing, it's not expensive, but it's also not cheap either. And I would suggest if you go out and buy a good quality adapter and you buy a good quality ND filter, it's going to be similar to the price of this adapter with built-in ND filter. And I think that's well worthwhile, because even if I had a very good quality adapter and a very good quality ND filter, which I do, I didn't use it because it was so inconvenient. It just meant that ND filter was essentially a waste of money. But making it so easy to use means I do use it, which just means that for me, the money is worth it. Now, if you're somebody that's adapting lenses and is already using an ND filter or have been thinking about using an ND filter, I think this sort of filter adapter setup is an absolute no-brainer. Now, if you're one of those people that's always wondered what is really the difference between an adapter and a speed booster, I've just thrown a video on screen now, and that will answer that question in detail, and you'll never have to watch another video on that subject.